Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to another edition of hashtag Ask Rob Co. Super excited for our very special guest this week, Younus Desai. He is a really motivational, inspirational individual who's going to share with us today his story, directory, his background in retail and in recruitment, and also the stuff he's doing in mentoring and guidance, helping young people in careers and their path moving forward, especially going through times that we're going through at the moment with COVID, lockdown 1, lockdown 2, wherever we are now, don't even know. As you know how the platform works on a Friday, you've got the column on the right-hand side, that's the questions column. You write the questions and we give you the answers, and we will be sending you home if you're not at home, and if you are staying at home, with some positive motivation, education and inspiration on a Friday, and Younus and myself will be providing you with that. Younus, thank you for joining, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me today. Really appreciate it as well.
So how things work on a Friday, the next 10 minutes, it's all about you, your journey, your life, your background, how you got to be where you are today, what you're currently doing, where you're going. And as you're speaking, telling everyone your story, the questions will be coming through, and then we will go straight into the questions and give as many good answers as we can to the audience listening live across all the platforms, and to all the people that watch it afterwards, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube or via Insta, watching after the event. So Younus, tell us about yourself, tell us your journey, and tell us what you're up to.
Okay, so everyone, hi, my name is Younus Desai, as Rob has kindly introduced me. Originally, I'll give you the background. So I'm of mixed heritage. My father, my late father was Indian. My mother is African, Indian, Portuguese. So I come from a mixed heritage family. I was born in Africa and grew up in Leicester in the Midlands. And I studied there until I was 18. And I was always somebody who's into arts and creativity more than a real academic. And what I didn't realize, the seeds that were being planted to me at a very early age, having also lived in the Middle East for a little while, because my dad traveled a lot for his import and export businesses. So we always had people coming through our house who were business friends, all these adopted uncles and aunts who were mainly people he'd been working with. And he was a real networker. And I didn't realize that that blueprint was being imprinted into me from a very early age. So I sort of developed from being a shy person to someone who was sort of more outwardly going, sociable, used to introducing myself to new people, people coming our way, and having traveled a lot with my dad. Fortunately, got to see the world quite a bit, and to lots of exhibitions for his import and export businesses. And I didn't realize how that was going to impact me later on to be sitting here one day, and how those sort of life skills have really helped. I went to fashion school. I did a BTEC National Diploma in Fashion in Leicester, which was back in the day, even earlier, was our hosiery industry, where the Midlands was. And my father's business was, in the very early years, in the 70s, one of the first textile factories in Leicester. So I come from a hosiery textile background family. So I think fashion was always in the pipeline somewhere. And then I studied fashion in London, at London College of Fashion in 1991, quite a few moons ago. I did an HND there in menswear and women's wear. And again, I was exploring my creative outlet. Unfortunately, I think I took the path of having a bit too much fun, as opposed to getting my head down as much as I should have. And with that, I then ended up taking a step into retail as a part-time job, coming out as a graduate, not really finding the job that a straight design job that I would have liked to have, because I think I didn't put my head down enough at the time compared to my peers who loved it, eat it, breathed it and everything, and led really successful careers in design. I ended up going down a retail path, which I found just fitted me really naturally. And I think ultimately it still is, because I'm a people person, and I thrived off having the customer in front of me and daily interaction. So for me, working at Selfridges was one of my first early jobs, in menswear back in '96, and then '97 in Harvey Nichols in menswear again. I met many great people who are now still some of my closest friends, turned out to be some of my candidates, turned out to be some of my clients, because they've remained in the industry. Again, so what was happening quite organically through the years of working, my phone book, my diary, was soon to be my little black book, which I didn't realize. So I then worked at several other businesses in retail, Joseph, Eden Park, which is a French brand, rugby brand, that was placed in Mayfair. And after about 7 years of retail and working weekends, I kind of felt like I had enough, and I just wasn't progressing, and I wasn't being fulfilled. And I think it was on a Saturday, the shop was really quiet. I stood outside on Conduit Street, looked up and down, it was dead at the time. And I thought, I can't be doing this for much longer. I need to utilize myself better. And I just felt I had more skills to offer than I was being given the chance to use then. And I explored a few things. I had to ask myself, what is it I want to do? What I don't want to do? Took advice from friends around me who knew me well, and I thought I could trust their opinion constructively. So I think always asking other people for advice that you trust around you is a really good thing. And a couple of people suggested to me recruitment. They said, look, you're really good with people. You're always networking. You're a natural networker. You know a lot of people in the industry. Why don't you see if you can do recruitment? And I thought, hadn't thought about it. I'd never found a job myself through a recruiter. I'd always given my CV out, walking through stores, handing my CV, or through a network of people that I know who would refer me to someone. And at that time in the early 2000s, recruitment was still coming up. It wasn't as big as where it is now with as many agencies on board. So I took the leap of faith. I applied to a few agencies. I got knocked back from all of them. And some of them now have been my competitor for the last 10 years. I tried, they all said, unfortunately, you don't have any experience. Come back when you've got a bit more. Luckily, someone introduced me to a small agency called Fusion. It was based in Soho, about 12 people. I got on really well with Alex Pescott, who's the director there. And he said, listen, I love you. I think you're amazing. You'd fit our culture. You'd fit our team. Unfortunately, we're too small. And if you can come back with 6 months experience, that would be great. So I applied to Hayes. I got a job with Hayes Recruitment. And Rob, relate to your area of building and surveying. I recruited for building surveyors, completely out of my field. But what I did then is I learned the game of building. I recruited surveyors for Knight Frank and other big organizations. And I learned the recruitment model, but then I learned once you learn the model, you can translate it to any industry if you pick it up very quickly. So I did that. In 6 months, I went back to Alex and he said, look, you're perfect timing. We need someone on board. So 2.5 years in Fusion, I built my portfolio of luxury retail clients. And I was basically recruiting people using my old phone book of all my friends and acquaintances that I picked up through retail years, saying, do you need a job? Do you know someone? Can you refer someone? Can you recommend? And that was great. I was having a ball. I was having a great time. I was doing really well. Fortunately, got made redundant because they decided to change the business model. And then I took a leap of faith and started my own business. And from there, the last 20 years have been working in recruitment within my own business and consultancy, which has been great because that's led me into careers coaching, helping people, giving back a lot of time to people who I've worked with in the past. And organically, it grew into helping students and graduates. So we were one of the first agencies to work with UAL and started a recruitment fair of just myself and my business partner with one table in the library. And now it's become part of their national event that they do twice a year and invited many other people. And it's become a big event for hiring students to get them onto part-time jobs or internships, etc. So again, a leap of faith that we took, just explored avenues, built relationships, networked, and things just sort of snowballed nicely from there. Where we found, so luckily as an agency, we find ourselves really nicely placed as a luxury recruitment agency, specializing in retail, which has been great until recently, until the pandemic hit. And at that point, we then realized what we'd always wanted to have done the previous 5 years was get into the digital area. We should have made a bit more effort to have done and possibly would have helped us get through this tough period. So a bit
when
of
you
advice.
say digital, do you mean online retail?
Online retail, so working with platforms like Farfetch and many other brands. I think that was always part of our endeavor. And again, a lesson learned here is always make time to work on your business. Even if you're working in your business, make time to work on your business or have outside help that can help you develop. We never saw it coming, and it's something that we would like to have been prepared for. So I think the lesson that I've learned that I would advise people as well is always look at where the markets are going, look where the trends are going, look where things are developing. And if you're not on the cusp of that, think about maybe you should be and how you can easily transform or adapt to that. And I think we've also seen many retailers like Debenhams and others recently, Primark, who've suffered in this pandemic, who haven't been able to apply to digital online sales and suddenly left behind. So again, that can apply to all of us now in any form of business, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever you're using, to be on those platforms. So come the first lockdown and now into the second, what I've been able to utilize my skills and knowledge is, like today, is offering careers advice. Normally I would go into universities, Coventry University, Ravensbourne, GCU, UAL, and many other universities, and do careers talks in classrooms, which I absolutely love, because there's nothing better than having a young energy in the room, people who need advice, they want help, they have ideas of where they want to go, but haven't quite got the industry insight to know what do employers want. And sometimes the little nuggets that I've left with people were the most simple thing about how to walk into a room and have a conversation with someone. It's not about the CV, it's about how you approach your handshake, how do you network, how do you come across the right way, how to not get nervous when going for an interview, how to prepare for an interview. And I think these are life skills. I mean, I was a shy kid growing up, broken glasses, national health glasses, smashed, one lens, and I was really shy back in the classroom. Somehow I've evolved out of that person because I took life's chances and I learned from people around me. But I think more than that, I tapped into what is my true calling. I'm more of a speaker. If you ask me to write you an essay or something, it'll take twice as long as I would to say speaking it. So I've learned that my skill set is speaking. So again, things like this I love, because I get to see Rob and the people on camera, I get to engage, we get to share an energy. And to me, I think, again, tapping what you enjoy and you're passionate about will always bring out the best in you. And yes, I've done jobs I haven't enjoyed because I needed to pay bills, but I think I always try to seek what I enjoy doing. And one other thing, in the first lockdown, I became a PT for my friends. I do video training with 5 friends, 5 days a week, 1-hour sessions. Because if I wasn't doing this, I would have wished I trained as a PT, because I love sport, health, and fitness. So I actually got to live my best dream, my alternative life in the first lockdown. So again, I was inspired by many people I saw online doing things creatively online during lockdown, suddenly finding their outlet of what they put a smile on their face. And I think that helped me take the leap of faith to do that with my friends. I'm not trained, but I did things within the safe parameters. Like my wife's a yoga teacher, so I had good advice to help. But again, I used things that were positive to me through a quiet period of when business was quiet. I found something that gave me a motivation that when I did log on for the day, I could then use that energy that I'm going to train at 6 o'clock, but between 9 and 6, I've got to get things done. So I found a way of planning my day, organizing myself, but with an end goal of something I really enjoy doing towards it. And that became how I got through the first lockdown, and I'm trying to keep up the same practice now. So for me, that's really been helpful, and I'm sure people have been finding different ways of getting through their lockdown period and all the mental health situation of supporting each other. So through this, I mean, more recently, a lot of careers talks I've been doing with universities, online CV workshops. Obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people in a redundancy situation or finding themselves looking for a job so suddenly and they hadn't planned on it and not done a CV for years. So a lot of people I've been helping doing it for free, and some paid services, some for free. For me, it's about helping. In times like this, it's about rather help people than trying to make money out of people. So whether it's careers advice, CV checking, interview preparation, people ring me up all the time. I'm going to interview next week. Can you just give me a few tips on this? How should I approach it? And again, sometimes I think things that are common sense for yourself when you've been doing something for so long maybe don't occur to some people. And in terms of research, I think preparation for interviews is really massive. You've got so much access to information online nowadays. I sometimes find that people don't do enough research into their interview prep, and employers really expect you to know, obviously, the basic things, enough about the company, who started them, when did they who founded them, what's their mission statement, what have they done recently, do they have any ethical or sustainable values that are now environmental that most companies are operating within, why you want to apply for that company, why should they pick you. And I think in the world of lockdown, as you see now, I'm sitting at home, so you've got to know a lot about me by just looking at the background. You can see some baby stuff. I've had a baby 7 weeks ago, but if I was sat in my office, we would relate on a more corporate level. But as we've come into each other's homes, you now can find ways of engaging with someone on a personal level. And 80% of getting a job is likability. If you can find a common ground with someone, I always found my secret was, can ask you where you're from. And if I travel to that country or I'm half of that heritage, immediately there's a click. It's like, oh, you speak the same language. I've traveled there. I know somebody from there. I went to a wedding there. Oh, are you from that city? When you click with someone on a personal level, suddenly the walls come down, the barriers go away, and everyone relaxes, and it's an organic conversation. So some advice I'd give to anybody who finds it daunting with interviews or informal meetings or networking, just treat everyone else as a human being. They probably sometimes have their own, everyone has insecurities. Whatever mask we put on, everyone has a little insecurity about something or another. And you might help them overcome something that they're actually a little bit insecure about, just through conversation. So, you know, and especially in networking, I always find it interesting how people are scared to talk to other people in networking events when everyone's there to meet someone else. Regardless of what the badge says, or there's a CEO or a director, they're there to meet other people. And if anything, they're not maybe wanting to step up, but they maybe want to inspire people who want to come up to their level. So they're going to be more than happy to talk about themselves or what they've done or how they can share in parts knowledge. So, you know, don't be shy in networking, meeting people. How I came to doing this talk was very organic as well. I think I engaged in a conversation on LinkedIn. A few emails later, I find myself here, completely out of the blue. So engagement is massive, and I think we're in a world of conversation where you might spend 3 hours a day on Instagram chatting to friends and liking. If you put a little portion of that time into work or more professional engagement in LinkedIn or other social platforms that are relative to your subject area, you just never know who you're going to meet. And with time zones internationally, you know, I've luckily, since having my baby daughter, I'm up at 6 or 5 in the morning. I've been connecting with people in US and Singapore and in New Zealand, or in different time zones who I could never normally catch. And then suddenly we're having conversation at that time, whether it be sociable or work. So I'm using my time creatively in a way that I can make the most of it, because I'm not going to get that time otherwise. So I hope that there's just a little bit about me, where I find myself right now, and how I got here.
Amazing, great journey, great story, loads and loads of questions coming through, so we're going to fire away. Let's go to the surveying piece. So love that. Couple of years building surveyors, maybe some valuers, chartered surveyors. So you learned the secret. Share with us the secret for the surveyors watching of how they should get their role or their placement if they want to join Knight Frank, CBRE, Savills, or Cushman, or whoever. Talk us through that, and it will be great insight and intel for all the people watching this from a surveying background.
Oh gosh, I've got to go back in my memory bank. It was a very long time ago, and it was such a new world to me. I mean, because one, I come from a fashion design background, suddenly I'm meeting with a whole different type of person. But what I learned, and I think this applies again to many industries, is because what I found when I was recruiting for surveyors is, number one, chartered or not chartered. And people fell into 2 boxes. And obviously the salaries miraculously jump as soon as you're chartered as well. So I think number one is getting your qualification to being chartered, because that naturally puts you into the right level, and gets your seniority and then your growth within the company. And I was fortunate to go on to client visits like Knight Frank and other places, which I, again, was learning on the job. But I think what I learned from there, which is different to creative, it's about, can you do the job? So some of it is tick boxing. Do you have the knowledge? Do you know the technical skills? Do you know your marketplace? And I think knowing now in the world of property development has gone up hugely since 20 years ago. Obviously, London landscape looks completely different. So there's a lot more in terms of portfolio, whether it's residential, commercial. And these were just words to me before. There was just jargon. I didn't know what they meant until I was applying them and speaking to candidates. And I think, number one, knowing your industry, especially as you could have sat in front of me as a recruiter who wasn't as knowledgeable as you, because you know your job better than a recruiter. So if you can impart your knowledge, your technical knowledge, and show that you know your marketplace, if not better than them, when they're then going to be putting your CV forward to one of those hiring companies, partly they want to know, the client wants to know, is he chartered or not chartered, how many years experience he does, has he done surveys, is he quantity or evaluation, has he done, which is tick boxing. But if you can impart that you actually understand that, and you give examples when speaking to the client, oh my God, this guy's great. He really is passionate about this. He's shared this with me, shared with that. It's not in his CV, but you could really feel his energy about that. etc., etc. So I think for me, that's what I found. The candidates that I placed were just really came across to me that when I went to my desk, I couldn't wait to speak about them to the client. There were
So
others who weren't as
let's,
enthusiastic. You forget
let,
about them.
let's just say one candidate that hasn't qualified yet and one candidate that has qualified. Tell
Yeah.
us the best attribute required for each of those over and beyond what you've already told us, because we've got a mix of balance of people in the audience watching.
Right. Oh gosh. Again, for the ones who haven't qualified, is if you haven't got the technical qualification, it's about enthusiasm. I think what's going to stand you out is going to be your enthusiasm, your energy, your want, because you're not relying on the piece of paper or the few letters after your name. You're relying on you as an individual. So when you're sat there as a recruiter, sat in front of someone or applying, you've got to transmit your personality and energy across to them, and your enthusiasm to want to work for that company or organization. For the ones who are qualified, yes, you've got that nice certificate, you're now qualified, but then it's going to come back your years of experience, and actually, can you give examples of your value that you've brought to those jobs or the businesses that you've worked for? Because yes, there are other people who are qualified, but what's going to differentiate you to the other 5 candidates? And I think knowing your marketplace, if you're becoming an expert in commercial or residential, or you're going down a certain path or niche, then really become the best in your field. Because you've overcome the block of the qualification. Now it's about, all right, well, how good is the actual person? And I'm having to dig into my archives here about that. So sorry.
Right, good. I mean, soon we're gonna go Debenhams, Arcadia, and the High Street. We're gonna touch on that in a sec. Just a few of the questions flying through. Amazing vibe from Younus. Thank you, Younus. Where do I send my CV to? As an agency, what are some of the things you notice in a candidate? I'm just going through the easy, quick ones, hopefully. As a fashion student, what would you suggest I do to start looking to get a job in the industry now? Make 3 or 4 pieces there if you want to fly through those.
Okay. For where to send your CV, obviously, Rob probably share the details, I guess, at some later point or with that. In terms of the fashion side, where to get the experience. So this, number one, people always want to go for the highest hanging fruit, which is the top positions, which is hard to get at. If you're here as a student and you're still trying to climb up, then the lowest hanging fruit is the experience that you're accessible to. So what I've always been preaching to fashion students, MBA graduates, degree, is get a job in retail. Maybe that's not so easy right now, but when the doors are open, if you want to work in the industry, number one, internships and apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are really good. If you can get internships, work experience through your university, through the careers department, a lot of universities now are so much more well equipped with bringing industry people into the university. Engage with them, get to know them, go on a placement, ask to work for free if you wish, if you can afford to, but they shouldn't. Now the law is that they should be paying for your work. Retail experience, work for a brand, whether it's your most desirable brand or just get a job, because what you don't want to do is come out of university with having no experience and just qualifications versus candidates who've been working for 2 years part-time while studying and have the experience under their belt. And we have many of those candidates. A lot of candidates graduate, ask for a reference from ourselves because they're now applying as a junior buyer, a junior merchandiser, an assistant manager, and we give them a really good reference, or I can get references for them from the brands they've worked for. So I would say retail, or if not retail, online nowadays. If you're going into a digital era at the junior level, apply for what is relevant to you. Don't aim above your station because it's going to happen and get lost in rejections. Keep it real, make your applications really personal. Everybody wants to feel that they're talking to the person who's applying, not just a robot. And again, that comes down to cover letter writing, CV writing, personalizing your application. Nowadays, you have to sometimes submit videos. So again, think about engagement, how you're going to engage with the viewer and bring them into your world and then get them to know who you are. And what was the first question, Rob? Sorry, from the candidate question. Don't know if you remember.
Yeah, so the candidate question was, bear with me, I've got so many questions, I've got to go. As an agency, what are some of the first things you notice in a candidate? Was that the one?
That's the one. Yes, that's a really good question. So first impression, I can't, it happens in every walk of life. First impressions count, whether it's a telephone conversation, an email, or visually in person, nowadays via video. So I normally can assess a candidate, been doing this for 20 years, before I even meet them or now over camera, but having spoke to them on the phone, already checked out their Instagram, already checked them out on Facebook to know who they are besides their professional face. Who is this person as a 360? So first impressions really count. Lay your ground out really well. You know, articulate yourself. If you're having a phone call, consider how you speak, how you come across on a phone call. How we talk to our friends is not necessarily how we talk in the world of work. And if you're going into an area that's, let's say, legal or luxury, there's a certain language, a manner, or a tone that is going to make you more appealing to that business. So think about how you come across professionally, how you present yourself visually, dress for your environment, dress for your industry. Make sure you're not saying you have to conform, but again, make yourself be employable. I work in the world of luxury, so unfortunately, presentation and grooming is quite high in the agenda, but everyone is still allowed to be themselves. It's not a cookie cutter scenario. But interpersonal skills, confidence, energy, enthusiasm. There's nothing worse than speaking to somebody over the phone, whether it's camera or phone, and they just like, yeah, hi, yes, I'm interested. One word answers, no passion, no enthusiasm. It's like they don't really want to be there. Why have you turned up and someone else has taken time to speak to you? So bring your A game, bring your energy to it, really make the person feel that you want this opportunity that they're speaking to you about, and that they're actually going to go away and work on your behalf to try and get you the job. So
Great.
yeah.
Thanks for that, Younus. So without giving all your trade secrets away, you said that you learned the model at Hayes, and then you could just copy paste it to all different industries. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that recruitment model without giving away, obviously, all of your individual special trade secret ingredients of what has allowed you to become so successful in your career? But maybe share a bit of it with us.
Sure. I mean, I never thought I would do recruitment. It was never in nothing. HR recruitment was not something I ever thought I would doing. But ultimately, what recruitment is about putting people together, putting A with B. And I do that with my friends anyway. I am the glue between my various social groups. I've got, the serious group, the social group, the dancing group, the fitness group, all various family. But I always find I'm the common link between them. And I love when people build relationships and then go off and have their own friendships. So ultimately, I think recruitment is the same thing. I have a client, I have candidates, and my job is to try and, almost like dating, bring the two together. But to do that, I've got to understand who the client is. I've got to understand who the candidate is. By doing that is by listening and really I really do have a personal interest in people. I hope we don't go into becoming AI robots and we lose human skills, and we still need people behind everything. So for me, I think the enjoyment of working with people, dealing with people, being able to listen, enjoying engagement is not always about me. My success comes through other people's success. If someone else is doing well because I was part of their journey in the smallest way, that gives me that warm fuzzy feeling, and that I feel like I've made a difference. So I found that going through various recruitment is about, whether it's surveying or fashion, ultimately is understanding what the client wants, what their needs are, what the candidates are looking for, what drives people in terms of whether some people are looking for a job because of financial, others are looking because it's their passion. Clients are hiring people because they need a certain amount of experience, others are looking for not the experience, but they want the reliability, turn up on time, not call in sick, be enthusiastic, be a team player, not to come in and upset the atmosphere and the dynamic between people. So once you kind of understand all of that, then you know what. And I quite enjoy the looking for people and finding them. And then I love, last week I had a conversation with a candidate in Copenhagen for a job that came out of the blue, and I spoke to a whole new wave of people in Denmark that I never thought I was going to speak to, and they were so happy to get the call from a recruiter in London. And one lady was happening to be looking for a job because she just found out she was going to be made redundant. And we had a great conversation. About half of the conversation was about work, and half the conversation was about life in general. And you just find out we're all in the same boat, with this pandemic. And it's a great platform as a conversation piece to open up, and people will really share and be empathetic.
Yeah.
So listen, empathy, I think, are two of the big skills that I've hopefully developed to help in recruitment.
I do about 100 interviews a year, Younus, and I really have learned so much through that process, and I absolutely love the process because I completely get what you're saying. Just the joy of meeting other people, other human beings, listening to
Yeah,
the wonderful lives and journeys that they're on, like listening to yours, is
yeah,
it's actually a privilege. It's a joy, and you enhance your understanding of what the world has to offer, and that's just I would say that's a luxury. Going back a bit to your early stages and early years, and we're running over time. I don't know if you're good for another 5-10 minutes because
yeah.
just got all the questions to get through as well. Just want to understand, are you a classic immigrant family story? Is this classic India, Africa, Portugal? Your dad's a trader, a market kind of person, learning at the rough edges of what it is to be a merchant. Is that more or less your story, or do you view it differently?
Yes, yeah, I would probably say that that's fairly accurate. My dad was born in India, moved over to Africa in the late 60s, 70s, with a mass migration of Indians to Africa. Met my mum in Zimbabwe. Um, he became a supermarket manager, so again in retail. I think it's always been in the blood. And he met my mum quite naturally, just organically. And then at the time in '74, when there was a mass migration from Idi Amin and a lot of people having to leave Africa, migrated to the UK. They came here with pretty much not a lot. My dad's eldest brother was the first one, and then slowly the family transitioned over. And I was born in Zimbabwe, left when I was one, came here in '74, and they started a textile factory. And that became the family business. And apparently, it was one of the businesses that was at the core of the community then. So yeah, it was a story of not rags to riches, but it was rags to business, trying to find something that they were good at and they could do. The irony is, in these again, a little story here is my dad's eldest brother was a bit of a entrepreneur, took the money and decided to make a movie, and basically sunk all the money, all the business after a couple of years, the money into making a movie that was a flop. The irony is, a lot of the people who worked in the factory for the 5 or 10 or 15 years then became multimillionaires in the industry in Leicester, who continued in the hosiery business. So they learned the trade working the machines, only later when we closed down to go set up their own factories. And these families have now passed it on to their 2-3 generation sons to run and still exist. And now they export fabrics to and print in the Midlands to other parts. So
Brilliant.
it's
So
how
the
things.
legacy's still there. The legacy's still there, and your family tradition keeps going. Let's talk about the high street. I've got quite a few
Yeah,
questions. One in relation to the brands such as H&M, Primark. You know, what impact do they have on the industry, as well as the high-end brands, Gucci's and so on, that you're representing? So just understanding the roles of those organizations, and then going back to Arcadia and Debenhams from a retail perspective, a high street perspective, and also a property perspective. What is the future of the high street? What's it going to look like? How's it going to innovate? And what do the next few years have for us in that specific area?
yeah. Obviously, it's been a real sad situation right now that we've all witnessed with the closures of many businesses, the job losses, etc. And every day when I'm reading this and I'm analysing it from a consumer point, from an employer's point, from a recruiter's point, the angles and speaking to friends and colleagues about it, it's a sad thing to see these household names losing the momentum they have. And basically, I mean, the commonality is always that they've just not kept up with the market. Debenhams was never proficient in terms of keeping their stores refurbished, appealing to the younger customer. Their classic customer was in their elder age, and eventually that customer market dies out and needs to rejuvenate with the younger customer. And unfortunately, the younger customer is on an online or on Instagram shopping or e-commerce. And Debenhams never had that. Primark didn't have a digital platform. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of these big names have lost their way, because they're still relying on the person to drive into, get the train, come in shopping, do this Saturday weekly shopping, go home, or Christmas. But we've moved far away from that, and I think that's where they've lost it. And then with Debenhams, it was a case. I heard a really good quote from an analyst the other day. He said Debenhams' losses was partly because they were already going that way anyway. This was just brought it forward, but it was because they had expensive lease stores that they couldn't manage to upkeep and refurb. And it's a lot easier to do a website and maintain and digitally upgrade a website in weeks and add product to a website than it is in a store, which has a lot more logistical issues. And that pretty much summed it up. And I think many companies who aren't in that way now have to really catch up. The high street's going to change. We're going to lose a lot of big names. There's going to be some small other players will come around. What's obviously happening, the monopolizing, is certain companies like Boohoo are buying up. Unfortunately, it creates a market where there are brands for offer for sale. We've seen what's happening with Topshop, Mike Ashley trying to buy up Topshop or putting money to save. It allows people with money to buy other companies out, try to save them, turn them around, keep the name if they're still valuable, or bring them up in a different way. I don't know what's going to happen to property. I mean, a lot of office space is available in London. I used to work, we had an office in Tottenham Court Road, we gave it up, working from home. A lot of empty spaces, commercial spaces, whether it's retail, whether it's office. I don't know what's going to happen to these spaces, whether they're going to become residential, but that's not obviously until we go back out to shopping and working in the workplace. In the world of luxury, on the other end, is doing very well. They're not doing as well as they would like, but the irony is people are still spending money in the luxury end. Whether that's retail therapy, obviously there is the 1%, and those who can afford it will always have money in certain areas in business. They have disposable incomes. Whether they spend their money differently, do they still need a £500 or let's say a £500 wallet or a £3,000 dress, or are they saving that for an experience on a holiday in their island or a boat off somewhere where it's safe away from a pandemic, and still need to buy to wear things over there? I spoke to a Selfridges personal shopper during the first lockdown. He'd never been so busy, and he was supplying clients with watches and investment pieces who were still buying goods to invest in during the peak of the pandemic. So the shopping habits are the high street customer is a daily customer who's working, earning and surviving and getting by. The luxury client has disposable income, saves their money and can afford to pay for that and still pay their bills and eat, but still has money to enjoy their quality of life. The luxury brands are obviously all pivoting towards online platforms, and they've never been so busy. We've had calls from clients this week asking to supply support staff to brands because the online brands that they go through are doing really well. They can't get the goods out quick enough to the clients. When I go downstairs to my lobby, the amount of boxes that are piled up for home shopping, and I'm being a retailer, I'm nosy. My wife's like, why are you looking at people's boxes? What do I see? Food, healthy food purchases, protein, sport and fitness gear, and fashion items, clothing and shoes. So those are the themes of what I see people buying every day from a consumer point. If you're looking for a career in fashion, I would say look very carefully at brands that are succeeding, that are growing, that have not had redundancies naturally. Do some research, because what you don't want to is go into a job and find yourself out very quickly. So look at the thriving markets. Listen to the news. I've never listened to the news so much. Get interested in economics. Have a business, have a commercial head. We can all be creative, but I think if you're not tuned into the news nowadays or what's happening on the stock exchange or the markets or business, then you're out of the loop of what's really going to projectly change your landscape in the next 4, 5, 10 years of when you're looking for jobs and your career growth.
Brilliant. Last two questions, Younus, and then you're going to give us what impact you want to have in the world and a bit of a happiness comment to close out for the weekend. So, is there a recruitment brief where you place someone which gave you the most satisfaction, a standout case? And what is the main criteria to become an excellent worker? Maybe start with the second one. Tell us the standout case, then give us what impact you want to have on the world and what you're going to leave everyone with for the weekend.
Standout case, I still remember many years ago when I started my recruitment, a young lady that I found working in Tottenham Court Road in a glasses store. I walked in, she gave me amazing service, had the most friendliest smile, the warmest energy. She was Brazilian. Renata was, I just came across her. She was amazing. I had to give her my card and say, you need to give me a call. You can be doing so much better. Within a week, she applied to me, sent me a CV. Within a month, I got her a job at Dior in Selfridges. She went on there to become a Gucci manager. She now then had, her husband was also in the industry, found him a job at another luxury brand. He was more into stock and logistics and finance. So they both went up in their careers before they then had their first child in the UK, went back to Brazil. They've had their second child since. He's now a financial director for a luxury brand, a CFO, and she is an area retail manager, country manager for a luxury brand. And still today we're in touch and we share family pictures and everything. And they always say, do you remember when you first met us in that store many, many years ago before our family and children? So for me, that's
Love
amazing.
that. Love that.
And in terms of being what was the other question about being a good recruiter?
Excellent worker, main criteria.
Sorry, main criteria. I think determination, enthusiasm. You have to want hard work. I mean, we talk about hard work. Hard work to everyone is slightly different, but I always ask the candidate, would you employ yourself? Could you honestly now tell me you've just demonstrated your best? Would you employ yourself if you were sat on this side of the table, or would you ask yourself to do something different or come across differently? And I always like to share positive feedback to candidates, because I don't think there's any reason having an interview with someone and they're going away without anything constructive, because a lot of candidates sit with us for an interview, and some of our interviews last an hour, which I was always told by when I was in Hayes, that was twice as long as it should have been. But I feel if someone's come to me, I've got a responsibility to help them and learn something whilst they leave, before they leave. So enthusiasm, hard work, determination, be a team player. It's not enough just to get a job and get paid. You've got to think, if this was your business, would you want the staff acting the way you act? That's the what I've always learned from my dad, and I was always working with my dad as even in jobs I didn't enjoy, but I learned hard work from him, how he had to graft to look after us. And I think when you're a business owner, you're slightly more in that world. But you know, if I gave you the keys to my shop, how would you run it? And I think certainly your expectation would suddenly change of how you think, right, turning up on time, looking the part, how you want your customers treated, how you want to deal with your colleagues. I think suddenly if you were given the responsibility for a day to run a business, you suddenly would have a good understanding of what it's like to be on the other side and what you expect from your colleagues. Maybe that's a tip for employers. Hand over the business to an employee a couple of hours a week and let them run the department, and see how it goes from there.
Great. Younus, been great having you. Give us what impact you want to have on the world, and what is your closing message to send everyone home this weekend if they're not at home, or to be at home and even happier this weekend?
Closing message, I would just want to wish everybody, first of all, best of health for yourselves and your family. Have a great Christmas. Look after yourself, be safe within the parameters of whatever tier you're in. If you're in London or wherever, do the sensible thing. We all have a responsibility, but enjoy your life. You only get one chance, make the most of it, seek opportunity, take every opportunity you get. I'm 40 something, I wish I was 20 something with all the access to opportunities that the 20 somethings have nowadays. And this is what I always say to them, you've got so many more tools to your hands, take every endeavor and make the most of it. Look after yourself, be the healthiest and the best that you can, and enjoy your weekend.
Amazing. You've been a great guest, Younus. Love everything you're doing. Keep it up. Love the stories. Big thank you to everyone listening. Big thank you to Parish, who every week says thank you to me and thank you to the guests. Love that. Thank you to everyone on all the platforms. Another great edition of #AskRobCo. Positive, happy, motivational Friday. Like Younus said, be safe, be healthy, keep supporting on all the platforms. Super grateful, super thankful. Have a great weekend, and we will see you all next Friday, 1 p.m. #AskRobCo. Take care, everyone, and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.